So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to change my presenter and make it Jason Mangos. And I'm going to flip it over, and Jason, you're good to go. Thanks, folks, for giving me a few minutes. I'm going to open up my questions area here and keep an eye on all of you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, cool deal. All right, everybody, good evening. Once again, my name's Jason Mangos. I will be your instructor for this evening's presentation. It's going to be one of my topics I like, coming from the field. I'm seasoned in everything, air conditioning, hydronics, and all the stuff that I learned at lovely Dieter Brothers in Bethlehem, PA, and at the Boat Technical School, which, I have to tell you, I was up in New York this past week, upstate New York, up in the Buffalo area. And Steve, you're going to love this. It was on the news. They had a local man come in and say, I decided to be, instead of going to college and being a teacher, I decided to go to Boat Technical School. You want to know the breakdown of what the Boat Technical School versus the college cost and how much he would make right out of Boat Technical School and how much he would have to work just to pay for his college. It was shocking. So get into the industry. It's a moneymaker. The numbers were phenomenal. So it was just shocking. So let's talk about hydronics. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot of things we can do with hydronics that we can't do with warm air. We'll talk about that during the presentation. So we're also going to talk about the pros and the cons. Hydronics aren't for everybody. Some people just prefer to do warm air or stick with mini splits. That's their business. It is what it is, but you got to take in consideration a lot of the cons here when we look at warm air systems, because now with all these different bacterias and sicknesses we got going on, and everybody with their allergies and all these particulates that are thrown through the home can cause issues. So it's really important that we look at the pros and cons of each system. So let's take a look at, warm air on the left-hand side there. You got an outdoor unit. You maybe got a 16 SEER outdoor unit with a Goodman gas furnace with a coil on top. And you look at that nice, beautiful boiler on the right-hand side of that nice TRX 150C there with that nice diamond plate. I don't know. I think that's beautiful. Maybe that's just me, but look at all the stuff you can do with hydronics. I mean, you look at the warm air, you're running them ducts up through the walls, ceilings, closets. And then if it's done after the fact, if it's a retrofit, then you're going to create more issues and making it exposing ductwork somewhere in the system. So, hey, I know it. You have to do it. Okay, you just have to do it. You have to go and do a room by room. Use your manual J calculations, measure the doors, windows. You just got to do it. Steve, you see that picture up there?
Oh, yeah.
Look at that little guy. Look at that little guy. Look at him. I told you he had a mean face. Come on. Don't worry. You got this, guys. All right. Very important that we look at the whole system. Now, keep in mind, ducts have to be run through the house sometimes. Sometimes you'll run through closets, living rooms. I remember growing up as a kid. It's funny, I tell this story in the training. We used to have, and you guys had a lot of them in Philly, Steve, by you probably. We used to have the gravity furnaces where, you'd have the heat exchanger, this one right here, and you had this big register in one of the central rooms. Me and my buddies used to pull the grill off and get these little green soldiers, and we used to turn the thermostat all the way up and see how fast they'd melt. And I used to know I'd get in trouble when my dad's come, Jason, get down here. He'd turn the furnace off for a couple of hours, and then I'd hang by my feet and pull all the plastic off. But those ducts also ran up through the living room. I remember they had a big round duct running up through the living room, and it ran through my sister's closet. So these are areas that you can use for space. So that's where hydronics is going to benefit you, because you can run a piece of, if you have an issue where you have to go from one room to another, you can use a piece of heat packs if you had to. Running copper. Now we got ProPress, guys. Come on now. That makes life even easier. I mean, you can just pipe in a system in a day, no problem. So hydronics has a little more flexibility than your warm air systems. And keep in mind, there's two types of fuel systems that gas furnaces and oil furnaces, two types of furnaces. So they're either going to be natural gas or LP, and then the oil fired furnaces. Keep in mind, oil fired furnaces, you have them, maybe they can be burnt with kerosene or number 2 fuel. So you have options there. So warm air units, depending on where you're at. And you also got to think about the location of the home. If the home's in a rural area that they don't have access to natural gas and stuff like that, you're going to see more of that oil filling them gaps. what you can do with warm air, you can have split systems. You can have a split system where you can have a system in the attic and you can have a system in the basement. You can have a split system, but when you start to add these split systems, now you need to keep in mind what type of material you're using. I don't know if anybody's ever had this issue, but I remember going back about 19 years ago when there was a big outbreak where everybody said the duct board, because people didn't put their return grills. So if you have a split system and you have duct board and you have a boiler system, what happens is a boiler system will create moisture. And what happens is that moisture, if you don't put your return filter in a plastic bag and close all the registers, that moisture goes up inside that ductwork. And what happens is it gets into that duct board and it creates mold spores. So those can be issues, because when you have a boiler and you have these systems, we see them all the time, where they have a split system, and that split system will be up in the attic, and then they have their boiler downstairs, which runs up all through the house. And what they forget to do is in the wintertime, they forget to take that return grill down and take that filter out, stick it in a bag, stick it back up there, and close all the registers, because if not, that moisture is going to get up there. Now, if you needed to have air conditioning, which we all do now, I'm going to tell you, I think it's funny that I remember being in the field, and it was funny because a no heat call, they would go without heat, but they would never go without AC. They always have to have AC. So you got a customer that has to have AC, you can incorporate a hydronic air handler. There's a lot of nice hydronic air handlers out there. I mean, First Company, a lot of people sell those. So there's a lot of great hydronic air handlers out there if you need to add AC.
How about a GF 150?
Slow it down. Here we go. Okay.
And by the way, air conditioning is not put in most houses in Vermont, upstate New York.
Yeah. They don't need it. They don't need it. I was just up there in Buffalo, and I got to tell you, Steve, it was 32 degrees in the morning. It was nice. It was nice.
It was. I was in 23 the other morning, and I can say that the PFAs, or what we sometimes refer to as flatlanders, come up and they put air conditioning in their houses, but that's not normal for up in New England.
And they don't use it that much. So, and this slide here shows our new GF 150. I'm so excited about this unit. It's a nice unit. Guys, it's the same setup as a TRX on the control platform. So you don't have to go and study a different control. The only thing we do need to specify is your dip switch settings for your CFM readings. Nice unit, because now look to the right there, we're eliminating 2 fuel sources. Take this in mind. You have a 2-stage gas furnace, which is what you need to do to even get close to a GF 150. Then you have a hot water heater sitting right next to it. Now they're both gas-fired units. You are now burning 2 fuel sources to satisfy something that you can have 1 fuel source to do 2 applications. It's a win-win. And I think it's going to take off. I see a lot of, what I see a lot of, Steve? I see a lot of radiant going in on the basement off that extra couple BTUs they have. I can foresee that. Little radiant tubing. Also keep in mind.
So it's just a brief note, to go back to 2 statements. One, in upstate New York, more and more common, and we're seeing it more and more in Maine and New Hampshire, especially with more new buildings coming up and global warming. We are seeing more AC come up. Thanks, Charles. Charles Dio says that he sees a lot more going out. But Tom Dodge also wanted to remind you that there's 3 types. Not only is there oil and gas, but you also have inverter drive heat pumps. So.
Yeah, well, we're not going to go there. That's a whole different ball game. Now we can talk about that, but that's more air to water, and that's coming, guys. So I have all the material for it, so it's coming. So don't be afraid. That is coming, and you'll see a lot more of that. But you still need your basic fossil fuel to back that up too. Certain, like your area, Steve, and those colder areas, you're going to need a fossil fuel as a backup too. But just to talk about also using domestic hot water and eliminating hot water heaters. Keep in mind, if you're using a TRX, you have both an air handler and you have your domestic piping right there. So you guys are saving the benefit by doing that, even with just an air handler and a TRX. You still get your domestic hot water. Oh, I love this. This is funny, because you go into some of these jobs and you just see all this duckage, leakage everywhere on the supply and returns. And believe it or not, it lowers your efficiency. It lowers that efficiency of that unit. So this is sometimes it's really funny, but sometimes it can become dangerous depending how it's installed. Okay, it could be dangerous if you have it in a garage and you have that duct leakage in there. Those fumes can be pushed into the home. So those are things where boilers aren't going to have that. You know what I mean? They're not going to push particles or fumes into your homes. They're going to push, just move the water. So, like I said, there's pros and cons. My first house, I had a warm air furnace. I mean, I grew up with one. And then you got things that concerns like this, sediment and particulates in the ductwork. That's a before and after. Cast iron boilers for years were very reliable. We had different versions. They were the big tank in the basement, everybody always said. And then they got more efficient, where we had the three pass Scotch Marine design with the oil fired burner in it. They came with different burners, Carlin, Beckett, Riello, so whatever you chose. They were very reliable, used for years. And then we started changing some of the control platforms, and then we moved up in efficiency. So if we look at a comparison to a gas-fired furnace or an oil-fired furnace and the electrical control board that they have in place, yes, you can go in and set dip switch settings and move a dip switch maybe to number 1 option that may run the fan a little longer. But if you look at on the left-hand side here, look at the control platforms we've had out there. The tradition, my favorite from the beginning, the solar control. I love that control, always loved that control. And then when it came out, we had the ATG control or NTI net control. Love that control. Not many people do, but I'm very familiar with it. And now the newest control is our new TFTN control, which is a phenomenal control. It's just a phenomenal control. So you get more features, you can change more settings, where you can't do that with just a standard furnace. Those standard furnaces, you'd have to upgrade to a 2-stage furnace with more control technology built into it, where most of these furnaces just have a fan limit on off. So we're going to get more features out of a boiler because you can adjust it more finer. And even with the new TFTN, it does 3 different temperatures. Where can you have a furnace do 3 different temperatures? With a boiler, you can do that. You can have different temperatures going to different rooms. And as I say, where can you do that unless you have zone dampers in the system and you're controlling those zone dampers? It's really hard to get a furnace to have one steady temperature and then multiple different temperatures. Very hard to do. So keep in mind, those are the pros with the boilers. And then also other features in this new control where you can give zone priorities. You can tell a zone what priority it is, and maybe you don't live in that space. You can't do that with a gas furnace or oil furnace. So it's something to think about. You have more pros with the boiler control. And what type of different systems? I mean, these systems sometimes are real easy to install. A series system, which is just a series of pipe, which I have here through the house, just a series of 1 loop. Very simple, sometimes inexpensive because, with ProPress and some people use PEX. I'm not going to say you don't see people using PEX, but they do. And sometimes it can be installed faster because sometimes you may have to, have the ductwork built. You have to pick it up unless you build it at your own shop. I mean, if you have your own duct crew, that's a little different. We used to sub it out to a local guy who used to do all the ductwork, and we would just come in and hook the units up, and he would just hook his ductwork from there. So depending on the setup, but hydronics is a lot easier. So it simplifies it. Like I said, it simplifies it. You don't have so many fittings, and you can design it how you like it. It's not a simple series. There's not zoned. It's just 1 series loop. It's just that 1 continuous loop. And then you have split loops. You can do split loops. Here's an example of a nice split loop. This is a FTVN. You notice, you guys all notice they have the boiler mag on there, nice little boiler mag on there protecting the system. So that's just a split system, probably split loop, have 1 loop going upstairs and another loop going in another direction. So it's good to follow all the recommendations too in the manual because you will have different piping configurations, especially even on domestic applications. I was talking to a guy today. We were talking about domestic applications. So just follow your applications and make sure you're following all our recommendations.
So a question came up. The question came up. How about ductless systems where you can put it?
I'm getting there.
Okay, good. Then I'll shut up.
I am getting there, Big Data. I got it.
Sorry, Tom. I tried.
Okay, so here we go. Ready? Now, The cons of a hot water heating system. Let's take a look at some of them. You can make them light up. Come on, that I like that. Remember you had that on the one slide that time, Steve, from Chris at Tossi Fuel. So and the other thing is, guys, I know a lot of contractors that are selling a crap load of ductless systems. I have them in my own house. I love them. And you're going to see more of them taking over the warm air market. And I'll tell you why. They don't have that many particulates being pulled into them. You can maintain them by cleaning the filter, air purification. Yes, you can go to any of the wholesalers and probably buy an air purification system like maybe, what's the name of that company? Tim works for him. What's the name of that company, Steve? Does all the air purifiers? Tim Bogoski works for him. What's the name of them? Shoot, they'll come to me. I think I have their information in here. You can also do radiant too.
RST?
No,
By the way, thanks, Tim.
no, it's one of the bigger. I have it in here. It'll come in. Wait till we get to the slide. Radiant floor heat. Radiant floor heat is great with high efficiency condensing boilers because you can drop the temperature, you can modulate it and get the long runs. See, this is where air to water is really gonna benefit because they are very efficient when they run constantly. And then with a fossil fuel, if they're matched correctly, they will run. And I'm gonna tell you, these new boilers will probably kick butt with an air to water system. I mean, things are changing. You guys gotta, it's going to change. Efficiencies are changes. And what you can do with hydronics, you can just do multi-zones. You can use zone valves. You can do radiant. You can do multiple temperatures now with the TFTN. You'll be doing multiple temperatures. You can also do it with the TRX and the FTVN. If you use zone number 1, you can run low temperature on zone number 1, and zone number 2 would be your high temperature. We did change some of the firmware inside that control for that. Just protect your system. Micron filter is very important, and properly size and filtrate and have good filtration in the system. It's very important. And once again, it's cool because you can do domestic hot water and heat all one application. So, thumbs up to Andrew Stevens for these pictures. And then also you can do multiple zones. And Steve, do you see what I tucked in there for you? Right under the piping, I threw a little gift in there for you. It's like finding Waldo. You see that there? That's your favorite valve there, Stevie, the I valve.
Are you talking my Takeo I valves?
I see it right there. That's another thing, guys. Keep that in mind. If you have multiple zone systems, the Takeo I valve is another valve that has really nice features with outdoor reset and then the control modulation. Well, I'm just helping you out there, buddy. I know you're getting sales numbers.
Between the TFTN control and the I valve,
Look at this slide. Just imagine having I valves right in place there, okay, and setting this control, wiring it this way with you had an indirect tank, using some I valves there in place of the zone valves. That would be a butt kicking system.
No, you still have to use the zone valves there because an I valve is just simply a mixing valve. You'd have to put that down below to mix the water because the I valve does not tie into at all into the boiler. It simply has its own outdoor sensor, hooks up 24 volt, and you have to put a bypass in to regulate the water to each of those zones.
Just imagine the efficiency you get out of this. Even if you had to use a zone, let's look at the system and the programming. Remember, multiple temperatures, and we can do multiple temperatures. So I wanted to show how simple the wiring can be, and then some of the installations, and you get multiple applications where you do both heat and hot water. And you can have multiple boilers. Come on now, you can have multiple boilers in the system. So if you have 15 furnaces, sitting on one floor, you're taking up a lot of real estate. But if you have 15 boilers mounted to the wall, you're not taking up that much real estate. All right. You can also, like I said, you can convert an older boiler, maybe throw an indirect tank on, where if you have a furnace, you have a separate water heater. So that's another fuel source that you're burning through. Water quality, that's our airflow in hydronics. So you still have to maintain that as as when you install high efficiency boiler, water quality is very critical. So you still have to maintain and prevent any issues from happening and protect the boiler. And also domestic applications, you're going to have to worry. Water quality is bad around the United States. You can see the different areas and the different hardnesses. There's some great testers out there that will help you to diagnose this. But keep in mind, the domestic hot water is coming from the street water. So whatever sediment you have coming in from the street, if you have a humidifier and it is a drum style humidifier or water style humidifier, you will have issues with sediment buildup from the water. That's why most people will recommend a steam humidifier, because you won't experience that many issues. So don't think that, boilers are the only ones that experience the water quality issues. Furnaces can also.
The steam humidifiers are going to take they're not going to work well with the sediment either. Trust me on that.
Be a little better off than the original ones. Remember the old drum styles? They used to go in and those filters used to be all cruddy. You touch them and just fall apart in your hands. All because
you mean the crusty drum?
The crusty drum. moving the water. You still have to protect the plate exchanger. Please do that. There's some things out there that can help you, and this can even help you on your humidifiers, the AquaPure scale inhibitor. I know I throw that out there all the time, but that little thing is the best thing to have. So protect your systems. And also keep in mind, if you have duct leakage, the boiler, the furnace is going to continue to run, but sometimes it can create a lot of damage to a home. Now, if you have a supply leak or a return leak on a boiler, what's it going to do? It's going to spray water everywhere, not fumes or dust or dirt or soot. So keep in mind, if a furnace ever goes south, you got issues. And filters like that, look at the particulates that are being thrown to the home. So we still have to field controls. There it is. Got field controls. That's the bugger you got to add. That little UV light, that'll kill all the particulates. So just like the water quality, you have to use a UV light for your air, for your warm air system. So same thing, you're protecting your boiler water quality and you're protecting your home health or your overall health. Any questions? All right, Dan.
Thanks for watching the video today. If you'd like to check out more videos, see the link below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for all the future updates. And also check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.